The vintage style is a style that I tend to use a lot with this type of photo, where I've taken photos in old medieval style villages, where there's a lot of kind of beige tones, especially if it's during the day and it's quite bright. So for European towns, these work really well. So this photo here was taken in the south of France, and I quite liked it how there was some light coming through, and just happened to catch this bicycle passing through at the same time. So for this, I always struggle and think, what could I do? And the vintage edit tends to save me. A similar effect I've done on photos from Amsterdam before, where this works really well. The key features we want to nail with this preset then is largely going to be the wash that you get over it that gives it that vintage vibe. In this case, it's a bit more of a green wash, but you could do a warmer yellow wash, you could do a blue wash, and most of this is going to come from using the tone curve and a bit of the color grading as well. So let's hit the reset button on this photo and start again. So you can see that in resetting this, we've got some more dark patches down the side here where we want to bring some more details out. Largely we can gather that to start with by just raising our shadows there. And that just brings back a little bit more detail in those darker areas. There's some really nice kind of colors going on with these beiges, like there's not a lot of distracting colors going on here, so there won't be as much work we need to do. But first of all, let's just go through the basic edit panel. So after raising the shadows and just bringing the highlights down slightly on this, not too far though, I'm just really looking at the top here. I'm then going to pull down, I think, the whites as well, just to tackle some of that lighting that's on the building. I'm going to be introducing some masking here later on, so I'm not too worried about losing some here, but it's bringing out again some nice details, some nice color down here, and just going to crush some of those blacks down a bit as well. For the clarity, we've got a little bit of leaves in here, but largely this is architectural, so I'm going to boost my clarity in this point here, just to around sort of 26 to 30 mark. And then as we're going for a vintage kind of style, we're not going to have as many bright colors coming out in this. So I'm actually going to desaturate my colors straight away from here, just globally, but I am going to boost the vibrancy of it slightly. I may come back and do more of this, but I'm largely think I'm going to saturate the colors a bit further down in the color mixer. Next is where the magic's really going to happen with this preset, and we're going to start bringing some of those filters, and we're going to do this actually across the different channels in the tone curve. So you notice as I go into the tone curve, and if I put a point in here to bring it up, we can introduce color like a wash over the top, and straight away just dipping down here, you can see how we get a bit more of a green wash. And this is where this vintage filter is going to come from, that sits over the top of your photo. You could do this down in color grading as well, but I like how it adds to the contrast here. But let's reset that point first of all, and just get a bit more contrast in. And because it's going to be this vintage style, we want to fade both at the top and the bottom, so where the whites are and where our blacks are. You can see I've gone quite aggressive on that as well. I'm just going to pull down our mid-tones slightly there. You can see I've gone really aggressive on both, more down the black ends, and that's just to lift this up. Again, it helps with that faded style, getting that vintage effect, really going quite aggressive on this point. You can put some more control points in here if you wanted to, just to bring down some more blacks depending on the image you're working on. So now we're going to go across the channels, and we're just going to start bringing in some additional color into this and hopefully start to get our effect. Now where the fun one comes down is this one here. You see as I lift this up, I get that red wash out onto it. Now interestingly, just like in the point curve, we can pull this across as well. And as I pull this across, it actually affects less of those black bits down there than if I go right the way back and then I come across again. So actually by pulling away, it's going to leave some of that area in the black alone. I'm just going to bring color in around this segment here. And you can see if I turn that on and off, we'll just get a little bit of wash color. And this is where your personal taste really comes in, how far you want to go with this. You could keep going really far and bring in more and more color if you want on this. The green channel, because I want more of a green wash to come out, this is where I'm going to introduce some of that as well down in the shadow areas. And once again, I can choose to come out a bit further on this, which I'm going to do there. It's a little bit too aggressive at the minute, and just drop it down. The further in you go, the more faded it's going to look. Further out, you're going to lose some of that in those blacks. Green channel's the one I want to bring a bit more in for this wash, so I'm just going to bump that slightly up further than it is. Now I may come back to this once I've done some color changes later on, but this is already achieving that style that we're looking for just from doing some tone curve and from doing your basic edit there. Turn that on and off. and you're getting that nice wash over the image. Again, might be too far for some of you, might not be far enough for others. This is your personal choice. You just have to lift this up and down at the bottom here, side by side, and you can see the nice effect that this is having. Likewise, I've gone for a green here. You can go on any of these channels, bring more red, bring more blue. It's up to you, but this is how you're going to help to achieve that wash. So into our color mixer next. We've got a lot of oranges, kind of yellows going on in here, a little bit of green. I don't want as much green going on, so I want that to be a bit less distracting. So first of all, I'm just going to tackle that green channel and move it down. And then same with saturation as well. And that's just to push it more towards these warms that we've got. Very, very subtle change it looks like, but it just takes away a little bit of vibrancy on those bushes. The next main channel I want to focus on is those warms because it's predominant in this photo. So I'm actually going to push these towards, on the yellow side, towards the green a bit more because we have that wash over already. And then you're just going to desaturate down as well. Remember, we globally desaturated down on this. This is just going that little bit further, but my oranges I'm going to boost up for some slight highlights. Probably a little bit too fast to want to have some color in there, so we'll leave it at that. Lumens for these channels then is also an interesting one. See, as I raise, I can brighten up, or if I pull down, I can get that darker effect on there. Because I'm going to bring in some more masking in that area, I'm actually going to pull down for the minute just so I can get some more color, some more life going on in there. Same with the green as well. And the orange we just accent out a bit. So there's not many other colors going on with the blues and the purples, but I'm just going to quickly go through these and see if there's anything I want to remove out or just change on this slightly. Now the red we've just seen down here is actually quite nice, and I do want that to just poke out a little bit more. So I'm going to boost the luminance and the saturation slightly in my red channel, because I do like how that just pops out in the corner there. We're now just going to move back up to calibration and just see if we can consolidate some of these warmer tones a little bit more here. So I'm going to push this towards that side, blues as well. You can see as I go across to that side we get fully over here more of that orange to pink. And this way it goes a bit more of a green wash. Because we've got a green wash in there already, if I pull this way I really am losing some color. So going the other way is just going to help bring back a bit more color into the image as well. And just really consolidate those tones together. The green primary, again, you can see if I come up on this, I can help bring in a little bit more saturation on that channel. I'm just going to dip it slightly. For this one though, works nice as well. I'm going to raise that one a bit. So calibration is great at this point because you can bring some of the life back into these buildings, bring some of that color back, but it's been a little bit more controlled than just globally pulling down the saturation. So if we turn that on and off, you can see how we got rid of a little bit of green of the wash that's on those buildings and just brought more of that orange back into it, but we still have our wash going over the whole photo. Finally then, just a bit of color grading on this. So I'm going to introduce some blues into the shadows, and it's really interesting when you do the color grading here if you've done some wash already. See, as I bring in some blues, I can get really nice color there that mixes with the tone curve. If I move around to the greens that I'm already in, I'm really just adding to what's already there. So I find I like to go, because I've got green in the image at the minute, I'm going to dip slightly below that into the blues and just kind of help add to what's already there. Highlights then, we've got mostly landing on those buildings which are orange, so again I'm just going to add to what I've already got there at this point. And this is very, very subtle sort of movements on this. And then finally mid-tones are going to drift more into the yellow side, like so. I'm going to turn that on off. It looks very, very subtle, that comes across, and again it's just adding to the color, it's adding to the wash that we've added over this as well. And we're just going to blend this a bit better, maybe push the balance towards blue slightly. If you're not sure what all this is doing, you can obviously check out some of my other videos on the channel. You can also go down into the website below and you can check out the masterclass as well, which will go through all of these tools and really say what each one is doing, how it's affecting your photo. If you like this preset that you've seen so far, make sure you grab that below as well, and you can grab my complete collection now, which I have available. On there you'll find some free presets for you to enjoy as well. So final little touch with some sharpening just to really tackle some of the corners of those buildings a bit more. And I'm going to leave the vignette aside, but I am going to just introduce a little bit of grain into here as well. Again, being a vintage film style, I'm just going to pull a slight bit of grain into it, but not too much on there. So that's our preset created over the top of this then. If we put them side by side, you can see how we've really washed out the image quite a lot more, but we've still kept the life of those colors in. Just to recap, a lot of this is going to come from that tone curve element that you've got down here. And remember to pull this away from the side and really experiment with this and try and find the color that you want to put over the image that washes it out. Think about what you've also got in your image. What can help to complement that? In this case, we've got a lot of yellow tones, so putting a green wash over works really nice here. But it's your personal choice at this point. You've got 3 channels. You can do the same technique across all 3 and get some very different results. Create a few virtual copies for yourself on the image and just try each of the different ones out and see which one you prefer. I won't spend too long on the masking side with this, as it was more about the preset today, but things you would have seen that I would have done over here is largely to put a radial gradient in the middle where that light source was coming in, and just to boost our exposure from here and take down the dehaze as well, just to get more of a glow. And we'll introduce a bit more of a temperature shift, and that's just to get a bit of glow in the middle. I'd also take a brush and really do a wide brush just to burn these areas down there to create sort of like a vignette, and run that as well right the way up the sides of the buildings here. For that, we will just decrease some exposure, a little bit of contrast. I'd spend a lot more time than basically going through this image, taking the brush tool, taking some other gradients and just going over some of these darker areas, like this area you'd see here, for example, inside the windows, painted some extra highlights in. You see a little bit up top, some of these balconies here, and again just dodging and burning these areas slightly more, just to create that nice mood of the piece, the atmosphere. This idea of the sun's behind here and coming down onto this. Don't forget our subject as well. We did brighten him up with some shadows, but we'll probably go a little bit further on that, so we'll see if the select subject. He did a reasonably good job. Just needs to go in with a brush and just capture the top of his head a little bit more there. Again, I'm not being precise with this at all here, but for this one, I'll probably just raise the shadow slightly. A little bit of whites and contrast, and a bit of clarity here as well. You could go in and actually do some cool stuff with the tone curves just to bring out some more like contrast into him, into the subject, darken down. You see this has real nice effects here. So you can have a good play around with a lot of this. Largely, I just want him to pop a little bit more from the image. So I may even just boost the saturation slightly as well. So turning those quick masks on and off, you can see the nice effect it's had. And actually thinking about that subject one, it'd be good to do an even tighter brush just along the edges here to really capture some of those highlights that are on him. If we're making this light source a little bit more exaggerated, we want to make sure it's hitting him as well. So quick on and off, and there's a quick bit of masking. Let's put these 2 side by side and you can see our edit for today then. So this is a great preset to use for those sort of medieval cities, the old European style towns as well. Anywhere where you've got a lot of beige stonework, the vintage edit can really help that, because you've got this story, this essence of old there already. By us tackling and taking an old approach to our edit, it can just enhance what's already there. But the choice is yours in which direction to go in. So I hope you enjoy that today, and remember you can grab this preset down on my website below. Grab your free presets from there as well, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.